Yes, so recently in the news, it was announced that Apple has recently settled a case where people were claiming against them that they have been slowing down their old iPhones. It's key to note that Apple hasn't admitted any liability, but it's quite interesting that they settled the case in the US. And another action lawsuit has also been filed in the UK. So it's ongoing things, and it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. What are your thoughts on it, Debbie?
So how much was the case settled for in the US?
It was settled for $500 million.
Wow, so does that mean that one person's now a multiple millionaire?
Not quite. It apparently works at about $72 per claim. So that sounds like a lot of claimants were part of it. But
okay, so it's a class action lawsuit.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm happy that Apple have agreed to pay out people that were affected by this. This is something that if you are an Apple user, or if you knew someone that was, they most likely complained about, which is where you had an iPhone. Let's say, for example, the iPhone 6. Each year, iPhone produces a new version, so iPhone 7, iPhone 8. And it seemed as though if you had that iPhone 6, whereas it was working fine previously, after the release of the new phones, it seemed as though the older iPhones, the battery life just suddenly went down super quick, and then the phones became almost unusable because, you might charge it overnight or what have you, but then it's not lasting you the day like it was before. And I think a lot of people had suspicions that this was Apple that was causing the older iPhones not to work. So it's kind of good to see that they've settled. Of course, as you said, they didn't admit wrongdoing, but I think if the class didn't have a strong lawsuit against them, I don't think they would have settled.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And I think it's definitely is something that I think a lot of us have definitely thought that was going on in the past anyway, in terms of the iPhones. But it's not just iPhone as well. It's also some of the, I don't know if something's been brought against Samsung, because I've certainly got some old Samsung like tablets and stuff, and their stuff slows down as time goes on as well. So I don't know if that's or allegedly does. I don't know if they've got a suit coming out soon as well. But yeah, I feel like it might be like a common theme within the industry, really. Okay. like a dirty secret.
Yeah,
it could be, but I don't know. We'll see as time goes on. Have you experienced it as well with some of your products? Or
I'm pretty sure I've experienced that too. Yeah, with an older iPhone that has started to become a bit slower and the battery hasn't lasted as long.
Yeah, battery doesn't last as long. Having to like charge it all the time.
Yeah,
like sometimes with one of the like the tablets that we have, if it comes off the charger just for a few hours, it's already it's already dead already.
Right.
And you have to, and then even when you load it, it's like quite slow, quite laggy. So yeah, it becomes quite unusable. So
yeah, which is not fair when you've spent a lot of money on the device for it not to last as intended.
Exactly. Yeah.
But quite interesting that although Apple having to pay out $500 million, which sounds like a decent amount, people are only going to receive, what did you say? Was it $72?
About $72, yeah.
Yeah.
$72 per claim, yeah.
Yeah, which is
tiny, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not really much.
That wouldn't even cover an iPhone.
But apparently, interestingly, there's like one in the UK that's going on, and apparently they're seeking $1.6 billion. Okay. £1.6 billion pounds.
Okay. Is there any way to join that class action, or is it too late?
That I'm not sure. That's a good question, actually. Yeah, I'm sure perhaps with this news, maybe more people might actually enter it, as as now they know that they're more likely to get some traction with it. So yeah, I imagine that might go up. But yeah, £1.6 billion at the moment is what they're seeking in the UK. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that one pans out.
Let's be speculative here. Could there be any justifiable reason for Apple to slow down older phones? Let's say, for example, they're putting a lot of their money and resources into bringing out newer phones that they want people to enjoy. Is there any harm in slowing down older phones?
Is there any harm? Sending through an update that they claim to be improving your phone, that's actually slowing it down. It's quite what's the word called? That's quite dubious, no?
Right.
That's quite, from morally speaking,
right?
Because they always talk about just update. Make sure you have your latest updates. Security is being updated, this and that. So yeah, you always expect your phone to get better, not worse.
Right.
So, but yeah, this quite the opposite happening here. So no, I think there's a moral problem there.
Right.
But at the same time, this is the issue. When things are not regulated, this is sometimes what can happen, that people can effectively do what they want. So it's definitely. Or what are your thoughts on it? Do you think that's
no, I agree. Yeah, I think especially if people have purchased a device, I think intentionally slowing it down, I think that's quite wrong. If it's one thing for it to natural wear and tear over time, but for it to be working perfectly fine, and then like you said, you do an update because you believe it will make your phone better or have improved security, but actually makes it a lot worse. Yeah, it's quite deceitful,
quite crafty, isn't it?
Yeah, quite crafty.
But in some ways it's good, because it's something that we've thought was happening for a long time. So at least now, I mean, well, I was going to say now we're justified, but it's not like they're not admitting the wrongdoing. But I mean, we can read between the lines there,
right?
Yeah. So it's interesting that that's come out.
That sort of brings us into a sort of a segue into Apple in general, and in terms of Apple innovation. This is, I think, something we were speaking about off the podcast a few weeks ago, which is that it seems as though since the passing of Steve Jobs, there has been a bit of a dearth of innovation at Apple.
So what do you mean by dearth?
A bit of a reduction or absence of innovation. I think in the early 2000s, it seemed as though almost every year there was like a new Apple product coming to market that got everyone excited, whether that was a tablet, whether that was an iPod or iPod Shuffle, or Apple Watch, etc. There seemed to be just something interesting to look forward to. Whereas now, I think now it just seems to be the phones, and it seems to be very similar to the previous phones. In fact, I think even for this latest iPhone 15, I think a lot of people were quite unhappy with it and didn't think it added much in terms of benefit further than the iPhone 14. And some people thought it was less durable as well. So they were like, it's probably better to stick with the 14, which is quite a departure from the past.
Ah, really?
Yeah.
That's quite interesting.
Any thoughts on that?
I think it's quite interesting. I think, that is something that we've noticed, isn't it? It's become a bit gimmicky. The improvements, though, very like minor, or if it's an improvement, it's not an improvement that's like that's like that's a significant difference or tangible difference that you can actually see or touch, or or even show off. It's kind of improvements that are kind of very more colors and so on, but the actual phone is very similar to the previous one. So it's disappointing for sure. And I wonder why that is. Is that, I imagine a lot of the workers that were there before are still there. So is it that, is it Tim Cook, I think, is the leader now?
I believe
has he
so,
gone? Is it Tim Cook has moved away from, the innovative ideas or the innovative push culture of before, or what's happened? Because I imagine engineers are still there. So, what's changed, kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Is it done purposefully, as in they're wanting to limit the amount of money and resources they're spending on R&D, research and development, and just focus on maybe mass producing their actual current devices for cheaper and cheaper? Or is it that, maybe there's a bit of a lack of talent or lack of innovation? Maybe people aren't bringing anything that are wowing the decision makers. So they're choosing to just stick with the status quo.
Or it could be, I mean, some of the ideas for the iPhone, we have to also remember quite a few of them were acquisitions as well. So for example, Siri, that wasn't something that Apple came up with. It was something, I didn't know that. Yeah, it was technology that they saw that another company was doing.
But and again, that involves a level of risk taken, isn't it?
Yeah. Then the idea was to integrate. They had the idea to integrate it into the iPhone.
Right.
So they had there was some.
Also the Shazam feature as well. If you hear a song and you ask Siri what song is playing, it uses a software called Shazam to identify what that song is quite quickly.
So that came from another company as well?
Yeah, Shazam, yeah.
Interesting. So how were they doing it before? Was that standalone, or was that
who doing it before?
The Shazam company. Like, was that a separate app or something? Or?
I believe so, yeah. They had the technology to do it.
Interesting.
Before it was integrated into Siri.
Interesting, yeah. So I mean, it could be that kind of division isn't really, because that's something that I know that I would imagine Steve Jobs was like really, really push in before. So I mean, it could be that maybe that division isn't, I don't know, doing as much as they used to, or it could be just that there isn't maybe as much, you know, out there, or it could be that they are working on something, but it just maybe has been delayed and it's coming out later. You know, they wasn't able to execute it on this launch. You know, I suppose in the tech space, the big thing so far has been AI.
Right.
You know, has been the big, you know, AI and ChatGPT has been the big boom. We've seen a big boom in that. So I would imagine for future updates that probably there's some kind of combination with ChatGPT or some kind of combination with AI would probably be where they're moving towards, I would imagine, in the future.
That would probably be very wise.
Yeah, but it's like a big tussle for it at the moment. So yeah, we'll see how that one plays out. As you know, you got Microsoft and what's the other company? Google, the big players at the moment in that market, and interested to see, you know, what they come up with in the future.
Yeah, and so in more Apple news, I don't know if you saw that very recently, Apple had decided to halt the sale of some of their Apple Watches in the US. And this is because some of the latest Apple Watches have a blood oxygen feature where I think it can detect your blood oxygen levels. And it was found in the US courts that Apple had breached a patent that another company, another health company, I think it's called Massimo, had already had in place. And so they felt as though that these watches breached that patent, and therefore Apple would be restricted from selling their watches there. So as a result, they preemptively took them off the shelves. And this was actually in December, sort of run up to Christmas, which I'm sure would have been a huge hit to their anticipated profits. Because you can imagine during Christmas time, that's when a lot of people would be looking to buy things like Apple Watches as presents. But yeah,
it's actually bigger than I thought. They're talking about it's nearly, the watches make up nearly 40 billion, or about 10% of sales. I thought, which is quite, wow, that's very significant.
It's quite a significant amount.
I didn't know they were so popular. That's that's phenomenal.
It's a huge error there in terms of not ensuring that their products were significantly different enough from the patent, or being able to demonstrate it in court.
But yeah, no, it's interesting. Yeah, they've had to halt the sale, so that will be a massive
Yeah, so they apparently are going to appeal to an international court, but regardless, it still have caused, you know, a huge backlog in terms of stock that they haven't been able to shift.
That's a good point. Yeah, they've missed the Christmas. They've already missed the Christmas run, haven't they? So
yeah, and the
definitely
January sales as well. Yeah, so
definitely lost money on it.
Yeah, a bit of a mistake there.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, wait to see how. I mean, the problem is some of these things take so long as well to
resolve.
To actually resolve. That that is definitely an issue in terms of when will they be able? Because for every month that they're not being able to sell it, that's lost revenue.
Right.
And if it's making up 10% of the revenue, that's big.
Be a huge hit to
that's quite a huge hit. Yeah, we'll wait to see how that one pans out.
Yeah.
If you've got any thoughts on the Apple situation, let us know your thoughts on our social media with Instagram at BusinessKeyPod and also at BusinessKeyPod for TikTok. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Bye.